This is our final session for the Walking Summit 2023, Walking into the Future. And then we'll have a wrap up at the end of this, hoping to finish by 4. So this is the part that I particularly enjoy, because this is talking to real everyday pedestrians who are not experts or whatever, and what their experience is for walking. So we've kind of asked people to share a few minutes of what it feels like for them walking, what their experience is, what they want to say about themselves and how they get around. And then in the second part, I'm going to ask them, what would make it better for you? Or what improvements can you see, having maybe heard a little bit from the Walking Summit as well. So these are not public speakers. We're going to be sitting down and talking about walking, my favourite topic. And yeah, so we've already heard, we've had all the talk, we've had all the plans and policies, all the clean concrete. So it's only as good then as if it provides well for the people who actually are going to use that space. And we know that Ototahi Christchurch has had a big opportunity to provide best practice, transformational pedestrian experiences after the earthquakes. So these are all Christchurch people, I hope. Yep. I think we're pretty all much Christchurch people. So we've heard about the many gap filler projects. We've just recently heard about the Riverside Space, the fantastic 30km/h speeds, the Margaret Mayhew Park, the Barnes Dance pedestrian crossings, laneways, and many other interesting features. So now we're just going to put our shoe leather on the footpath and hear from people what their everyday experience is about walking. So we've got five panelists. Carl here has 2 interpreters. He'll tell his own story in a minute. But first of all, I'd like to invite Ed just to say a little bit about yourself and what your walking experiences are. And if you just don't mind holding that,
absolutely.
So people will give you a nod at the back if it's not working well. So off you go, Ed. Thanks.
Very good. Hi there, Ed Hill. I'm a structural engineer, and I've been asked by Meg to the pedestrian panel as a parent. Brief 2 life-changing events that have made me very passionate about walking. Back in 2017, I broke my back, did a pretty good job, compression fracture of my T12 vertebrae, and I was about 2 millimeters away from a piece of bone going into my spinal cord. So pretty lucky to be able to walk. And after second round of surgery, the surgeon gave me 2 pieces of advice. The first one was don't jump off any more high things. The second piece of advice was get walking, in terms of, just for health and mobility, and that being a really good way to recover from that kind of injury. Second life-changing event was just over a year ago. I became a parent. And so, as any other parents and carers in the room will know, the best way to get a baby that doesn't want to go to sleep is to put them in a front pack and go for a walk around the block. So I've spent a lot of the last year walking around the block again and again and again. I think from a parent's perspective, some of the things that I really appreciate about the pedestrian network in Christchurch and local to me, I'm in Hoonhay. I commute to work walking every day to Addington. I think the wide verges and a lot of green space that we have is just amazing. So really protecting that is really important. As part of that, there's 8 playgrounds within 10 minutes walk of our home, which is just amazing. Again, protecting and investing in that infrastructure, especially as the medium density housing stuff starts coming in. There's going to be more and more people without access to gardens. So being able to get out into those green spaces, I think, is super, super important. And the other things, quiet streets and links between, this is for the planners in the room, new subdivisions or anything that are going in. One of the things we really appreciate are the little links between roads. So you're able to sort of take shortcuts to places, or to be able to stay off the main routes when you're walking. Especially with a sleeping baby, it's very useful to be able to walk and do little laps around and go through those little cut throughs. And a lot of the new subdivisions, it's try and cram them in as close as you can together, and that sort of pedestrian access through sometimes gets a bit forgotten about. And the final one is refuges. So on roads, obviously the crossing points. I presume they're a lot cheaper than $1 million set of traffic lights. So more of those, because they're just great, especially when you've got a pram or you're carrying a baby. Yeah, being able to get across roads safely. I think those are just fantastic. Like they're more of those rather than like one set of traffic lights every few kilometers or something. So I think those are the points.
Cool.
All right, cool. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. So now we're going to ask Carl. So I'm just going to ask, do you want me to play the video first?
Yes. Yeah, the video would be great.
So Carl's made a video that we're going to share here right now. If I push this button, it's going to work. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Carl Lintott. I'm deaf and I'm blind. I can see a little bit, but in the bright light or the beauty, I end up being completely blind. I find it quite hard to walk around in these situations. So what makes a good journey for me is using the APP and having the tactile tile to show me where to stand and having a nice smooth flat surface, a nice wide path to walk on. That gives more room for people to be able to walk and walk past each other. And that means people can walk past me on either side of me without an issue. If it's a narrow path, that makes things quite difficult. And sometimes I have a concern about that. But sometimes it's not good, I have people pushing me, and that's not good. Some people are not very patient. There are some things that get really frustrating for me in Christchurch City. And I have some concerns about some things. And so these are the things that I'm going to explain. So one thing is that sometimes I will be hit by cars as they are reversing out of a driveway. And sometimes bicycles will come around the corner very fast. And I'm walking on the other side of the corner and the bicycle will hit me. And that makes it quite a scary experience and not very nice for me. And sometimes I don't see scooters coming and they will hit me. There are other times bicycles will go past very fast and I'll feel the wind as they go past and get a huge shock as they just scream past me. And that's not safe for me. It makes me very scared. So there's cars coming out of driveway and bikes coming up from behind me, sometimes hitting me. And there are some people who aren't very nice. There are others who are kind. They might tap me on the shoulder and let me know that they're coming. But others might hit me in the back. And that's a real shock for me, especially if I'm out walking with my cane. It's not very nice. And there are often overhanging bushes that will hit me or scratch my arm when I'm walking past. And so there have been times my arms and my legs be scratched quite badly and they hurt quite badly when I'm walking past. One thing that I get really scared about is all the changes that happen in the city. Sometimes I'm walking along and I don't know where to go because things have changed. And because I don't know where to go, sometimes I get stuck in the city and I feel very scared. So that happens with some things in the city. Sometimes I get stuck. And often there are bikes and scooters which are parked right in the middle of the footpath, not in a proper park. So bicycles and scooters are often parked incorrectly. And also when people are putting money in the parking meters, often the parking meters are placed in the wrong place. So then I end up walking straight into the person who's using the parking meter. So that's not safe. And so the parking meters really should be much closer to where the cars park, next to the road, so that people can walk along the footpath. It's what not happy about these things. There's not enough room for people to walk around these things. Another thing is when there are roadworks, often I get stuck and I can't go past. And the people there won't help me get past. And especially if it's a very bright sunny day, I can't see the signs and I can't read where to go because my eyes are quite poor in the bright light. And so on those days, I'm pretty much fully blind and I can't see. Yeah, so when it's very bright, I can't see, which means I can't read any signs, which means I can't get past the roadwork. Sometimes I find that experience very scary. As a deaf and blind person, and I think really for all people with disabilities, that would be really difficult. Hi.
Oh.
My name is.
I think we've come to the end. Oops, and I'm pushing the wrong button. Push the stop button, that helps. So thank you, Carl. Thank you. Thanks very much, Carl. I think that's beautifully illustrates some issues. So I can't resist, sorry, chair's privilege, but the issue with parking meters on footpaths, if parking meters were turned 90 degrees and people wouldn't be standing out in the footpath, blocking the footpath. So please, traffic engineers, just turn those things 90 degrees and we've got a solution. So now I'm honestly, I'm quite a big asker of questions and chatter, so I'm going to shut up. And now I'm going to invite Judi Whittingham to share some your experiences. Thanks, Judi. Just hold it up a bit. Yeah, up near your mouth. Yeah.
Meg has asked me to come
Maybe a
and
little bit closer. Yeah.
Has asked me to come and speak today because I'm a regular walker. I walk in the hills, I walk around the rivers, and I walk through the city. Now, when I'm walking to work, which is perhaps twice of each week, it's in the dark. So that's another consideration. I enjoy walking in the city. I like to see the new developments that are going up, the buildings and how they're progressing. I like to see the new artwork.
Teeny bit closer. Yeah, sorry. It feels too close, but it needs to be nice and close so everybody can hear.
And I enjoy seeing the day progress. Generally, if I'm lucky, there's a sunrise happening at that hour. I start work at 7:30. So I work in the northern end of Manchester Street, and I'm walking from Waltham, which is about 3.7 kilometres. Compared to Carl over here, I have very few issues when I'm walking. I have to watch out for the traffic, and sometimes the cars do not give way. When I have a green light to go, the cars will zip around from my right, and I have to step back quickly into the gutters to avoid being hit. The only other problem I have on the footpaths is where there has been repair and the repair has left a lip, and all of us have to watch a tripping hazard at that point. I would prefer to walk through green spaces, through Margaret Mayhew or other green spaces, but sometimes in the city that's not possible. But generally, I enjoy the walking a great deal, and I appreciate the footpaths and the width of a lot of the footpaths and the laneways through the city, so that I'm able to stay off the main roads.
Mm.
So my experience is mostly very positive out there.
Mm. Thanks, Judi. Now I'm going to invite Ingrid to have a few words.
I
Great.
always enjoyed walking around and seeing our beautiful city. And about 7 years ago, I started using my scooter and thought, that's great, I can get around a lot faster. And it wasn't quite the case. The ambient of footpaths is quite bad for me. I need to be closer to the houses or the fences. Otherwise, if I'm too close to the road, I feel like I'm going to fall off, and especially when you go over driveways. And I have always gone on the left and followed that rule. If there's a group of people, it doesn't work out that way, because they tend to go that side, and I feel like I'm annoying them. Like, I went to the fireworks in Brighton and everybody was leaving at the same time, so I stayed where I felt more comfortable, but people seem to be irritated, so it can make it a little bit uncomfortable. I think also if the bins, and normally it's just common sense, and you don't think about when you're walking, you just walk around a bin or move it aside or something. But if you're on a scooter or in a wheelchair trying to move that bin, or you can't get around it, you either have to go back to where you came from, or in my case, I just get off, pick up my scooter, put it on the road, and then go around and get up, which can just be a little bit annoying sometimes. But the footpaths, that's probably my main issue that I have, and not having curb drop downs. They're not regularly, but that's probably me.
Is that you? Oh, thanks, Ingrid. It's quite hard sharing your personal experiences sitting on a stage up here, so I really do appreciate you folks volunteering, being volunteered to come and do this. So our last speaker is Carina, who is of course a living streets person.
Thank you. I'm here speaking for advocates, and I guess there's a lot I know on the line, and it's a heavy job speaking for everyone. But as an advocate, we play a role of listening, knowing, and often working in the field. So we identify the issues, we know what they are, and we can speak for a group of people, but we don't replace the people we are speaking for. And I acknowledge that nobody goes out and sets their mind to design something that's not usable, that is inaccessible. Nobody sets out to do that. It happens where there's a lack of consultation, and that consultation needs to start right from the beginning. So pre-planning phases, right through the design phase, through to the end, and the review and monitoring phase. We have some fabulous examples, and I know Vivian's on the line, where the shared spaces in Auckland were a success, not so much where they're not monitored, but the initial ones were a success with the level of work that involved advocates, involved the people, involved the communities, the council, Auckland Transport, the designers, for quite a few years before they went in. So it was a long planning process. It was trial and error, what works, what doesn't work. So it does take a commitment to get design to be good. So really, for the populations that I work with and groups I work with, it's having consistency in design, it's having logical design, it's having something that can be understood. So wayfinding in itself is not just about the signage, it's about how other people interpret where to go, what's in that environment, and access that information. So we've heard about Collins Walk, how can we make that more accessible for everyone to enjoy each part of it? I guess for me, some of it is the barriers. So it's the enforcement that comes later, or doesn't come later. You get people parking on the footpaths, you get people leaving bins out in places they shouldn't be, you get cars parked in the shared spaces here as well, you get the delivery vehicles coming through out of hours. How do we support the councils and other authorities to monitor that? And that's a big part of ours. I was really pleased to hear the mention of awareness training this morning, because that's something as an advocate I've been involved in my whole career. For 34 years, I've worked for one organisation in the disability field, and it's a valuable opportunity for us to come in and share our knowledge with you, help you to gain more of an understanding. I'm not speaking for every disability group because that's not my expertise. I know a bit, but I speak more about mine. But I welcomed, I'm not sure if Glenn's still here, but the opportunity years and years ago to talk to his students at Canterbury University. And it's a good design model of getting in and talking to people, but giving them a little bit of an experience of what it's actually like for the people they're designing for. So making sure things are more inclusive. I guess that, the clutter free, and I'm so pleased that we got rid of the red under the zebra crossings. It is an amazing difference that it makes for someone who's colourblind, someone who doesn't see red, and there are a lot of people in the community, so the contrast is gone. So there have been some really good wins over the years where we know we've been listened to, and that we've had some really good relationships with the people who set these in place. Lack of legislation and actually adherence to best practice guidelines is the biggest issue for us. And I would say that it does need to come top down. We need some really good solid legislation that says you shall do these minimums, because that's what people strive for, is minimums. When you put something out there, do better than those minimums. But when those minimums are best practice and not a standard, not a regulation, then they're not going to be followed. And unfortunately, it's usually the groups who are more vulnerable who are the ones that miss out on that design. And I live in a new development. We've got lots of walkways through, but we've got lots of curves. Curves for a lot of people, you lose your orientation, you lose your direction. They are challenging in themselves, and they're sometimes not the best design to make good accessible routes for everyone, as well as the non-active users of that environment. So I could probably go on all day, and I won't, because there may be questions for our panel.
I'll just get you to hang on to that one for a minute, Carina. I'm going to ask the panel what things they think need to change in just a minute. So, but I haven't, and I should have said before that we are videotaping the whole summit. So all of this valuable discussion and kōrero will be available later, and Rami and Iran at the back are on the cameras, and we've got obviously got Marianne on the IT doing a fantastic job. So now we're just going to go and have a little think. What do we need for the future? So as I've walked around Christchurch, I'm going to give you some of my observations, whether you want them or not. I think that I've noticed there's quite a lot of footpaths that don't seem to be in good shape. There's the trees, but there's also, it looks like you're still suffering from earthquake damage, and you still haven't quite got all of them back up to shape. So that's sad. I really am getting a bit annoyed waiting at your traffic lights. It's too long. And that's saying something from Wellington. I know we've got some very long ones in Wellington too. It's not just Christchurch. But I'm quite concerned at how many shared paths I'm seeing as well. They really don't belong in urban areas. And I think somebody mentioned that 50% of all new infrastructure is shared. So I thought that was quite an issue. So first of all, I'm just going to ask each of the panel members to share maybe 2 or 3 points about what they think needs to improve, either in their area or nationally, to help some of the issues that they see in their walking experiences. So first of all, I'm going to ask Carl, so I know that one of his interpreters can't stay for the whole time. So Carl, can you share 2 or 3 points with us about what you think?
So scooters on the footpath are very dangerous, and people just popping things anywhere on the footpath is obviously very dangerous for us when we are walking through that pathway, and it means I'm unable to see those things that are on the pathway already. There needs to be somewhere dedicated for them to be put. The other problem that we face is when we're walking and cars are coming out and there's other people on the footpath as well, we obviously need those pathways to be a little bit wider for us to be able to walk on, because there's lots of people using those footpaths in the city especially, and it isn't easy for us to walk on such small footpaths. We need some more space for us and more space for the people that are using those walkways. And obviously if we've got things like scooters and bikes on there as well, that obviously needs to be a little bit larger and take those things into consideration, not just able-bodied walkers.
Okay, so we'll go down the line here. Ed, what do you think? Give us a couple of things.
An interesting one that you've just raised, Ellen. Lincoln Road, the new set of pedestrian lights across there, obviously too clever for their own good. They've got like a little sensor on them that detects movement, I think. So you push the button, and if you're stood there waiting, and then the light goes out, and you have to do a little pedestrian dance to make it realize that you're still there. So anyway, that was one that I didn't have on my list, but that was too clever for its own good. The two that I wanted to raise for parents with prams, driveways, I think Carl also raised that one as well. Probably more awareness things for people with high fences right next to driveways where cars are coming out. Possibly even worse where we've put cycleways in, because the cars are coming out, not looking for pedestrians, looking for bikes, which obviously good, but not looking for pedestrians, bad. When you're pushing prams along, if you've got precious cargo, a metre out in front of you and you're pushing it along. I've had a couple of really close calls with cars coming out of driveways. I've now got little bone conducting headphones, so I can still listen to a podcast, but hear what's going on. And final one was an interesting one that you might not think about. Barriers into like parks and things, obviously to stop motorbikes and other transport getting in there. Try doing that with a baby strapped to your front, trying to get through one of those little barriers. Actually, there's a park near our house I have to climb over a fence to get into because I can't fit through the barrier with a baby strapped to your front. There you go. Right.
So Judi, what's a couple of things that you think could be improved?
So when repairs are done to a footpath, to make sure that the repairs are complete with a smooth surface. Often there seems to be a lip left over, and that's a tripping hazard for all of us. And the big one is having red arrows at traffic lights to force the cars to stop, to give way to pedestrians.
Okay, thanks. And how about Ingrid?
If you can make footpaths flatter and not on such a lean, that would be my top priority. I think traffic calming measures in residential areas are safe for everyone, and more raised pedestrian crossings are safer.
Cool.
Some of the issues that were mentioned this morning for me, I'd love to see the radii of every intersection change to be a shorter journey, a logical journey, to be able to get the tactile tiles, which is my passion. I am on the Joint Standards Committee with Australia, and it is my passion. Make it easier. You need less tiles that are easier to put in if you actually design the infrastructure to work. If you get rid of roundabouts, or if they are going to be put in priority raised zebra crossings before the roundabout. A lot of the people I work with they're not seen. You're set back from an intersection slightly. They don't see people approaching. People look right to turn left, and the pedestrian is crossing and they're not seen because of fencing built up environments. So it'd be good to actually have some more legislation about the heights of fences and making sure that there were cutbacks so you could at least see. But yeah, roundabouts are not easy. Refuge islands are good for some people, but if you think of standing at a road crossing, that can be quite daunting. It's a 50k zone. Everyone does 60. When would you cross if you couldn't see the cars, if you couldn't hear the cars? So just thinking about everybody, how to make a journey easier, particularly around some of the facilities, your shopping malls, your schools, making it easier for everyone to actually do that. So they would be my biggest wishes, is to look at design of our roading infrastructure, because it interrupts every pedestrian journey each time you get to an intersection.
Come on to that in a minute. So I'll just do some leading questions now. So we've heard about National Walking Plan at the summit. It's a really key new thing that we're going to roll out nationally. So I just would like to ask the panelists what they think would be, what things would they like to see in a national walking plan that covers all of New Zealand that maybe they, assuming you've thought about it for more than, I don't know, I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. What are the things that you think would be most needed in there? And maybe you could think about like funding perhaps would be one, or think of some other things as well. So Carl first.
So Carl has just said that, especially in cities, making things more walkable and not having so many changes all the time, especially without announcements made about those changes, because it makes it very, very difficult for somebody like me to then find my way around a city that is not already accessible for a deaf and blind person. And it is really, really difficult for me, and it becomes very frustrating, especially when that's my main mode of transport. So if things are the same without the changes, that would be better for me and a lot more easy for people that are deaf and blind to get around a city. Some people aren't sure where they are supposed to be going, so without proper knowledge prior to these changes happening, it is very difficult for me. And I do get lost in the city if these changes happen without notice to me.
Okay. Carina, you have a go next one. We'll go back this way.
Yeah, I guess for me, you know, we've been a little bit involved with knowing a little bit about the walking plan, but I guess it would be really good to see it finalised, to have some good strength and have the right funding, but seeing pedestrian, you know, our footpaths, seeing priority coming through in funding from government. And I think I understand there's a need sometimes to have that word cycling there to get councils on board, but how do we change that? How do we get councils just to separate and put walking and assigning that funding to good walking environments? Off the cuff, that's probably me for now. Yeah.
So you've all had at least 20 seconds to think about it. Have a go.
Off the cuff, two things. The sort of 15-minute city concept, as usual, what gets measured gets moved. I think I hadn't realised that the Christchurch had a number. I think the more we sort of measure those things, how close amenities are within walking distance of various communities, I think that type of information is really interesting to publish that and have that as a metric that we're making decisions around, rather than it just everything kind of getting more and more centralized and bigger one thing that everyone has to travel to, rather than lots of decentralized sort of smaller community facilities or whatever. Second one, roadworks. I'm not sure what it's probably the right group to be asking what the guidelines are around roadworks. It just seems to be roadworks go up and then they just put a sign at the other side of it saying pedestrians go across here, even if there's absolutely completely unsafe to cross. There's just like the last thing they think about is, oh, there's a footpath, we'll put a sign there. So I don't know what the guidelines are, but possibly some better guidelines around what the people putting the signs out should be doing, how they actually facilitate pedestrians to safely cross the road.
Cool. What about Judi? Thanks.
On a national level, perhaps more green space for pedestrians to walk through, and the laneways through the city to keep us away from the main streets. It's far more pleasant to walk through Margaret Mayhead than down the sides of Ferry Road.
Good one. Ingrid?
Whenever I feel like going out, I go online and look for accessible places to visit so that I know I can go there. And when I get there, they're not actually accessible, or you can do 5 minutes of something, which would be, the whole thing would have been an hour. So just having things that are accessible and knowing that you can hop in your car, get to a place, and I can zoom around on the scooter and enjoy the scenery or whatever, and know I'll be safe.
Cool. And just before we hand it back, this is a real quick one. What do you think about e-scooters, and should they be on the footpath? Just that's very topical, so you know.
No, I think they should be on the road. And I was actually, when you were talking, I came in after lunch and you were talking about it, and e-scooters and bikes can go 20 to 25 kilometres. I can only go 6, so I can still stay on the footpath as far as I'm concerned.
It's a tricky one. I can see the point of view of them, of why they wouldn't want to be on the road. They're looking to protect themselves, but certainly we have to consider the pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I think they go too fast, and as a Lime user, sometimes they go too fast to be on the pavements. So yeah, I think you should be on the road, and I think the road should have better provision for cycle lanes, etc. So.
Yeah, cool. Do we need to answer your question?
So yeah, we all know the living streets point of view, but having those on a footpath makes every footpath a shared path. And so, you know, I'd just like to say as an advocate, it's a challenge when every journey is a shared journey, because some of our footpaths are only about 1 metre wide by the time you get the overgrowth, and we've still got the old-fashioned deep dish gutters here in Christchurch, and they are quite challenging, being pushed out further and further to the curb line. So yeah, living streets point of view, but from the client base I work with, it would be great to see them off. We've been abused, we've been yelled at. The bells on them are taken as this means you get out of my way, rather than them being courteous and thinking I should actually go onto the roadway here briefly. So,
Carl, what's your opinion?
I find scooters very upsetting. I don't like them, and maybe they should be in cycle lanes. Yeah, they just go far too fast, and they're really, really scary.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask the panel if they have any final concluding comments. I'm just giving you your 20 seconds of warning. And then I'll just, if anybody in the audience has got some questions for our panel, have a think about some of those as well. So who wants to go first? Carina?
I'm just prompting a question here because I'm aware of some of the issues.
Just any final concluding comments that you want to make?
Maybe Carl would like to tell you about the last week. He's had the week from hell out walking. For example, one day he was going to the local cafe. First he was hit by the countdown truck. Then about 3 minutes later he was hit by a bike. Yeah, and they pushed me out the way, and I just about fell over. So he had the hot chocolate break, which usually fixes things. And then on his way home, he was hit by 3 preschoolers on their bikes, and he was knocked to the ground. The mother got so angry that she stomped on his cane.
So I guess for me, just summing up, you know, we have hope in all the guidelines that are coming, all of the development, the great work that's been done. We hope that they get implemented and that there is some degree of compliance with those. Because when you work with people who walking is their only option, or adding in public transport, and we've heard some really good presentations of some of the things being done. Sarah didn't mention some of the work they're doing on modelling with the curb heights to make it easier to get onto and off the bus. I'm in the old age group, according to this morning. And I'm fine now. I do have a bad back, but I also sometimes struggle with those high steps off the back of a bus when they've parked out from the curb. So yeah, so it would be some of the guidelines that are coming through are great, and I just would like to see them taken up. I'd like to see them enforced and reviewed and monitored. You know, we missed a lot of opportunities here in Christchurch, which I'm sad about. Retrofitting costs a lot of money, so let's save money, do it right once.
Thank you. So any final comments from Ed?
Just, yeah, I think it's just really important that we're all advocates for, getting out and walking more.
Cool.
And the work that you're all doing is very much appreciated.
I'd like to thank you for, I've listened yesterday and today, and all the things that you're hoping to do is great, and it can gives me a bit of hope that we will get there in the end. So thank you.
Okay, any questions from the audience for anybody here? I'll need somebody to come and run with the other microphone, please. Can you have to come and grab it? No, you're our panel. So is that Mike first? Thank you.
Thank you. My mother, this question of driveways was alluded to by Carl and by Ingrid, in the sense that vehicles coming out of driveways have had to give way to people on the footpath. Does anybody who drives a vehicle out of the driveway know that? Is there any indication on any driveway that that's what happens? And driveways tend to take priority in terms of level over footpaths, so they're designed for easy vehicle use, so they look as if they're vehicle use, but they're actually not a footpath. Do the panel think that's an important issue that we should be addressing? Don't ask me how, but I think we should.
I think it's often lines of sight from driveways, and we're currently going to be changing our front fence in the not too distant future to improve that. Previous owner just put up a big white fence that comes right the way to the driveway, and you can't see, edging out in the car, and kid comes screeching to a halt on a scooter. It's happened to me a few times, and I'm very, very cautious. So yeah, I think probably more awareness to homeowners that have high fences that can't see. Maybe that's something.
Anybody else on that one? Yeah.
I've got a high fence and I drive really, really slowly, and because all the kids come past because the school's not far down the road. And yeah, that is something but my issue with the footpath was the gradient when I go down on my scooter, because I'm on an angle anyway, and sometimes the driveways they're steep that way, and then you go down and then you go up, and then I'm on an angle, and I just tend to feel like I'm going to fall over. So that was my concern.
Does Carl got a comment?
No, he just doesn't like being hit.
Carl says he just doesn't like being hit. Fair enough too. Nobody does, and nobody should have to be either. Any more questions?
Yeah, it's more of a
Right.
comment than a question. I think that all drivers, when they learn to drive, should learn to use the Dutch reach when they open doors, so that people don't get floored. People on scooters, scooters on bikes as well as pedestrians. I've on a number of occasions just about been floored when I've been on my bike by people opening doors who are not looking.
Do you just want to say what that is?
So the Dutch reach is basically using the opposite hand to the intuitive hand when you're opening the door, which forces you to turn around and look and see who's coming, so that you're not going to floor them when you open the door.
Thanks. I think it's a question.
That's a good idea.
Or maybe Celia behind. Okay, we're over there.
I've got a question for Carl, and it's sort of before even walking, what goes into planning a new trip?
Just give him a minute to get it.
If I'm learning a new route, the first thing I have to do is email my orientation mobility instructor and let her know that I need to learn that I've got problems, I need to go somewhere. Then I have to work out when she can work with me and when an interpreter can work with me. And this can probably take 6, 8, 10 weeks. So you don't want to do it in a hurry. And then I have to get maps and work out exactly where we're walking, and then we practice it. Sorry, his interpreter's failing here. Yeah, then we have to practice it until I'm really confident. And then if I'm really lucky, I've just learnt it, and the city council or somebody doing work shuts the footpath and I have to learn it again.
I'd like to say a good example of that is the new construction of the Court Theatre. So you spend months learning that route to turn up one day, get halfway down over the lights to find a sign that's there. Watch the pedestrians who don't cross the road. There's quite a few, because you've got to cross the road. If you have an impairment, you've got to go back to the last traffic light, but a lot of people are just coming round it. It's very interesting watching human behaviour, but yeah, it happens a lot.
Thanks. Maybe Celia? It's right here. Yep. Thanks, Ryan.
Kia ora. I'd like to thank the panelists because you make what can sound like abstract ideas really personal and really important. And I guess this is a little bit of a call out to any government agencies and councils to ask people in their communities who have these specific needs, because it'll make it better for everyone, actually use your voices directly, because I think it'll be much more persuasive than a politician or an engineer or a transport planner who knows it in theory. So thank you very much. You've really ended with a fantastic session that reminds us how important walking is for everyone.
Thanks. Any more questions? I think there's sorry, I don't know your name. Green. Mike. Just yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you. And I just wanted to comment that as a former city councillor, I think one of the most powerful things that I did was actually go into the community with people with different disabilities and have a walk around and see the challenges that they actually faced. And that actually, when you therefore looked at plans, actually made you make different decisions to actually make it easier for the people with disabilities. And I know quite a few that we changed that actually did that. And I do have a question for Carina. If you're aware of the Cranford Street shared path outside Placemakers, and your thoughts on using those mini speed bumps to slow down people biking because of the conflict with cars and the impact that has on people walking.
Yeah, sorry, I've stand up because I don't feel like I'm talking.
If you want, I'll just
Yeah, that's in my slides of WAPA. So it already got there. A lot of changes were made along there. And so for anybody who's got a mobility device, they're great if you put them on the cycle lane when you're approaching a zebra crossing for a bus stop or something like that, because they slow the cyclist. That's the purpose, is to slow the cyclist, but they are a tripping hazard for pedestrians. So I don't agree with them on the footpath. I don't agree with the visual clutter. So if anyone's been down Cranford Street heading towards the Northern Arterial, it is visually a nightmare to deal with. And a lot of the bumpers to stop the vehicles coming too far over the footpath, they're right on the edge. So any driver coming out of those driveways as well already has the front end of their vehicle over the driveway. They should have been set back a little bit to give that comfort zone so they're not over it. I'll just add a little bit, which with the management of roadworks and other issues around the city, there was some great work done by an engineer working on the rebuild in Christchurch. He put a lot of effort in. He consulted with a lot of groups, including Living Streets. He put some great work out there. I don't know why it hasn't become part of the guidance in any of Wakakatohi's works, but it is really good work. I would love to contribute to that. I'd love to see that become something that would then be picked up by all local authorities. I worked with one client, the rebuild on St Asaph Street. She got round the first sign into the cycle lane and back up into the wet asphalt because nobody was there to guide her. She found the obstruction. She went round it as she had done every day, but suddenly they were sealing and had blocked the footpath off. So it's not being able to interpret what you want on a sign to interpret. It's not having an accessible sign so a cane doesn't hit it. First, you hit it with your head. So there's a lot of that happening. You've got to, and then the footpath gets taken up with signage for drivers. Keep it on the road, but don't create a hazard for the cyclist. Yeah. So sorry, that's my issue.
Once we get going, there's no stopping us. So any more questions? We've still got a little bit of time, but or we can just wrap up now because you hold that one so we don't make a funny noise. But I just want to echo what Celia's just said. Your coming and speaking here today is so valuable because if we can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if it's not working for people, it's not working. And people need to believe it when people say this is not working for me and do something about it. They need to not minimize it and say, oh, well, it's only one person, because if it's one person, there's probably a whole lot of people having that issue. So but there's some fantastic things also that have been happening. So we've been fortunate to be able to highlight some of those, but this is the cutting edge of, is it walkable or isn't it? So thank you very much. I have a little gift for you, and it will take us a few minutes just to get on to our very final session, which is the wrap up. So if just tie-ho a minute, but then don't go away, because I have a very nice gift to give. So if we can just really give a really big round of applause to our fantastic panelists.